Hi, everyone, and welcome to Healerpedia's Heal Forward series, where every week we feature an incredibly inspiring story of how someone has healed themselves from a chronic illness. Today, I'm super excited to have as our guest Cate Stillman. Cate is a master healer, as we describe her, and of course, she also happens to be a founder of Yoga Healer and Yoga Health Coaching. Cate, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about your journey. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and how you got here today.
Yeah, sure. So my background before I went into healing was actually in planetary healing. So I was very involved with climate change, global warming, from the politics and economic side. And I ran into a wall of just wanting humans to make more conscious decisions. And that brought me into Ayurveda, which understands planetary consciousness and the relationship between people and ecosystems and raising human consciousness. And so that was my journey into Ayurveda as I studied Ayurveda and then later yoga and became certified in a number of different yoga systems and in Ayurveda. I just found that the way that I learned was inefficient largely and that it would be easier to just like hack the system for people to get results faster. And so that led me to first create yogahealer.com and then yoga health coaching.
Sounds great. So tell us a little bit about Ayurveda. I mean, there's a lot of viewers we have that actually don't understand Ayurveda, and then there's those who have misunderstanding, misconceptions. What is Ayurveda, and what about it fascinated you?
Yeah, so Ayurveda is it's a very complex folk medicine from India. It's a people's medicine. Every native culture has their own medicinal theories and systems and perspectives. And the one from India is very well developed, especially in relationship to human consciousness because of basically it accompanying yoga. So yoga is the path of enlightenment. Ayurveda is the path of how do you have a healthy body while you're on the path to enlightenment.
Got
Because
it.
if you don't, as you know, from suffering from illness, when you're suffering from illness, there's really not much else you can do. So if you're
Yes.
interested in things like enlightenment, it requires a healthy body. It actually requires a healthy mind and healthy relationships. So Ayurveda is the medicinal system to help you cultivate all that. And I mean, medicinal system it's also just a way of life. So it literally translates to Ayu means life and Veda means to study. So it's the study of life. It's the study of how humans can thrive by living in attunement with nature and their own nature as humans.
I absolutely found it instrumental in helping me keep my sanity through my illness. So I'm excited about having you share today. So talk a little bit about what are the illnesses that Ayurveda can heal, and in your personal experience, what have you seen actually healed with Ayurveda? Because again, a lot of people say, oh, it's there, but it doesn't really heal anybody. So let's help dispel that myth today. Does Ayurveda heal chronic illness?
Yeah, I mean it's so funny, like how the whole East-West divide and different perspectives and whatnot. And it's funny. Like one thing that comes to mind, I was at the vet last week with my cat, and my 14-year-old cat was diagnosed with diabetes, and I was told she needed 2 insulin shots a day.
Aw.
And I walked out of there. She's 14, and I just asked my cat. I'm like, Cat, do you want to do this? And Cat's, from all I know in my cat, she's like, no. Like, you're a healer.
Twice a day.
Like, use your common sense and all your training and figure this out. I did a little online research, found out what she should be eating instead of what I was feeding her, and found out that a lot of the herbs used in Ayurveda for humans also work on pets. And a week later, I can tell just by her urine that she doesn't have much sugar in her urine anymore. Her energy's coming back, her weight's coming back, and it's all within a week. And she's 14, which is, yeah. So I mean, so much is wrapped up in beliefs. I know Dr. Gabriel Cousins. He has a 30 Days to Beat Diabetes program that relies a lot on Ayurveda and living foods, and the powers of meditation and yoga, and really just clearing the crap out of the body, clearing out what in Ayurveda we call ama, or when food and emotions isn't fully digested, it gets stuck in the tissue of the body. And it can get stuck in the subtle body as well, which is where a lot of the mental impressions live. And it just creates coagulation and congestion. So as you clear that stuff out, almost everything starts to get better. So what's curable versus what can someone actually see improvement on in terms of their mental, physical, emotional, or relational or spiritual health are really two different things, right? Because some people might be really sick by the time they just say they have a very severe autoimmune disease by the time they discover by the time they discover the power of choice in their diet and their lifestyle and a lot of information and wisdom from really any holistic healing structure. If they're too far down the path of disease by the time they discover it, it might not be curable. It might not be healable, but the quality of life might dramatically improve. Right. Versus someone who catches things like, within the first 10 years, often, it's like there's a lot of time. The body's giving signals all the time, whether things are doing great, whether you're doing great in your day-to-day habits or whether you're not. So based on that, I mean, most things are curable if you catch it early enough.
Right. So you have seen people with early stage illnesses healed with Ayurveda.
Yeah, both, really. I mean, I've seen both. So yeah, absolutely. I've seen.
Great. Well, let's talk about some examples. I will say one thing before we jump into examples. You mentioned Amma and you mentioned the mind-body connection and how we all kind of, if you catch it early enough, you heal, but if you wait too long and body gives signals, I'm a living example of all of that. Waited too long, body was giving signals for years, but it wasn't until it became a chronic illness that the doctors couldn't diagnose that I got desperate enough to start looking at alternatives. So it is sad that we wait until pills are not working and the body's not working to look at alternatives. And I'm hoping that with the Heal Forward series and with master healers like you, we can start to get the education out there so people can start looking at these forms of optional treatments before they get to the point where it's not reversible anymore. But with that said, tell me some examples. What have you seen?
Sure. Well, I mean, I often don't say that I've healed anything because what I primarily set up courses for people to have breakthroughs, and I put the responsibility of them as the healer on themselves. So I'm not taking credit for healing anyone. I'm taking credit for guiding and empowering people into healing themselves. Mm-hmm. And I find when people don't actually take that responsibility, it's very difficult for them to get healed because there's so much. I mean, this is another just basic principle of Ayurveda is that you get insight every day. Your body's giving you insight every day into how to be healthier. Every single day, you're getting insight in how to do tomorrow better. If you ignore that, that's the chief cause of disease in Ayurveda. The chief cause of disease is not listening to the insight that you get day in and day out from your mind, from your body, from your relationships, from your spiritual life, right? You get the messages and you ignore them. You get the messages and you ignore them. You get the messages, you ignore them. You end up in a pain.
Right, sick, really sick.
Yeah, really sick.
And you can't breathe anymore.
How did I get fibromyalgia? How did I get chronic fatigue? How did I become obese? Exactly. How did I get depressed? How did my periods get so painful? Well, there were a million signs before any of that happened. Even if you have painful periods at menarche, there were signs before menarche that you were going to have some problems menstruating. So, I mean, specific diseases, one woman comes to mind. She went and went through my Living Ayurveda course, which is a very much like, how do you live the habits? How do you hack Ayurveda and get what you need to optimize your life? And so she came in with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. She went through that program twice, and that's very common for my students that they stick around because they start feeling better and then there's more to learn, and so they go around for another round. Now, I just saw her 2 weeks ago, and she has become a yoga health coach, which is my program then for others helping others, right? And so it's a habit-based program where they learn how to teach people in the basic habits of Ayurveda that have made the biggest difference in their lives. And so she reported 2 weeks ago, I don't have chronic fatigue.
Wow.
I don't have fibromyalgia, and now I'm helping other people avoid, basically autoimmune diseases. So that's not an uncommon story. I hear that story.
How long did that take, Cate?
That took 2 years. So it's 24 months from having chronic fatigue for over a decade, fibromyalgia for over a decade, to being symptom-free. Now, there's another woman who came. She was in a car accident. And she just reported, she's been in Living Ayurveda course now for 2 years, so 2 cycles. And she was in chronic pain after her car accident. She was a mom, school-age kids, and a breadwinner. and she was basically in, totally dysfunctional in her pain. It took her 2 years to become pain-free. She made incremental progress, over the 2 years. And in the beginning, it's hard, and you don't see that much. And all of a sudden, you start to get these huge bumps if you're really sticking to it. These just huge bumps of energy stability and then energy integrity. Now she's absolutely pain-free. She knows how to live a pain-free life. And it's all through just the basic, the habits of Ayurveda are really pretty simple, and they're all common sense. And like I said, how we get a million messages to lead us into a pain cave. The solutions are very simple. They're very intuitive. We start to pay attention.
About the habits. You mentioned the habits are very simple.
Yeah.
Give us some examples of some habits.
Yeah, I will. And they're in aphorisms you can find in any language, which I find really heartening. This is basically like a planetary wellness system. It comes from India, but it's just based on human beings. So, the one early to bed, early to rise makes a...
When you say early to bed, give me a time frame. What's early to bed?
Yeah, well, let's finish that. So early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, right? And so when you pay attention to insight, you become smarter, right? You become wiser, and that's an important part of this. So early to bed is usually within 2 hours after the sun sets. So in general, that's around 10 p.m., but depending on where you are in the, basically where you are in the planet spinning around the sun, which hemisphere you're in, what time of year it is, that's going to fluctuate. In the summer, we need less sleep. In the winter, we need more sleep. Winter's a restorative time of year, and summer is more or less a partying time of year. It's summer, it's celebration. We're out, we're productive. Nature's hyper productive in summer. Humans are hyper productive in summer. In the winter, everything goes to sleep. So we
live the same cycle as the planet, is what you're recommending.
Well, how could we not? Where did we come from?
Well, it's easy to forget that, isn't it? We seem to be abusing everything around us, and I think sometimes we forget.
Absolutely, and that's really how people get sick. Is the further you stray from nature's rhythms, and the more you pretend you're like a space-age human, the more pain you're going to eventually feel. The more disconnect from the planet that reared you, right?
So true.
So we evolved, right? We can't forget evolutionary science, right? So we evolved as humans on a planet, and our bodies we're different than like felines or canines, right? We're diurnal, we're not nocturnal. So my cat goes out at 5 p.m., almost like clockwork this time of year. 5 p.m., it's time to go hunt.
Yep.
See you guys later. She may come in at 5 a.m. She's going to go do her thing, and then she's going to sleep most of the day.
Yep, that's mine too. We get an occasional rat in the front of the door. But unfortunately, she's got this terrible habit where she comes in at 3 a.m. And we have a door by our bedroom, and she insists on coming and knocking. And it's a toss-up whether my husband or I open the door. And there's always a little rat, happy little sad rat, dead right at the door. She's so proud of herself. But you're right.
Right, but humans we come from monkeys, so we're monkeys, right? And we know that we see in color, and canines and felines don't nearly have the color range that we do. So we're attracted to food that has color. We're not necessarily attracted just to like rodents that move around, right? But felines and canines aren't really attracted to apples and pears and melons and things that have these really super bright colors. So in general, our bile cycle is strongest in the middle of the day, whereas for canines and felines, it's actually more in the night. Right. So if we're eating, which most Americans, most Westerners now, and even Indians in cities do, eat the majority of their calories after dark.
Right.
You're acting more like a feline or a canine, and you're going to feel really sluggish the next day. Especially if that meal has any animal protein, or really a lot of protein or fat in it in general. So if we're not eating the majority of our calories at a time when our body can digest it, which is when the sun's out, or when it's daylight, then we're going to have a lot of issues with our immune system. We're going to have a lot of issues with weight balancing. We're going to have issues with depression. So the nature of the imbalance is generally like secondary to what's causing the imbalance, right? So the actual specificity of the disease is secondary to the habit that's being violated. So the number one thing I look at is what habit's being violated. Is the person eating the majority of their food after 8 p.m.? Are they staying up too late? Are they not waking up at dawn. If someone's not waking up around dawn, they're probably going to struggle with life purpose, direction, eventually depression.
Mm. You know, everything you say makes a lot of sense, but it's hard, right? If you think about the lifestyle we all lead, late night dinners, I mean, dinner is the big meal that the family eats together. And if we are not back from work until 7:38, well, dinner is going to be a big, heavy meal that's pretty late at night. So we're not finishing dinner till 9:30. And to your point, that means we're not really sleeping until much later. It's what I'm realizing is it makes so much sense to follow the Ayurveda style of life, but it's not that easy. How do your patients or how do your members deal with living in society, which is unfortunately structured now to live a late night life with the habits while creating good habits? How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, so what we do is we put people in courses that create a subculture where the subculture becomes stronger than the culture of their I mean, everyone's in tribes, right? You're in your work tribe, or it's like if you look at the culture that you just described and you just wrote down a list of like who are the 10 people that influence me in this pattern right now, or who will be whose my relationship will be disrupted when I change this.
Yes.
Right? Like, so those are the people that are your current tribe. So we actually create a tribe of people that are making rapid change in that direction. And then we coach people on how to actually do it and how to navigate their current tribe, like how to navigate the relationship issues that are going to arise from a person making empowered decisions. What we find is that this is the thing too, is we enroll people into programs really specifically. So we're not going to enroll someone that's not actually, we basically look for people who are not looking for excuses anymore.
Okay.
And they're just looking for health. So we empower people that are seeking to thrive. We don't try to convince anyone that, hey, you should lose 50 pounds, you'd be a lot happier. Right. Or like, hey, you should get over your depression. There's a lot of great life out there for you. Like, there's an amazing experience out there that you're totally missing out on. Let me convince you to do this. We enroll people who are like, I need to feel better. And we say, how bad?
Right.
Right? What kind
how committed are you? Right.
Yeah. What kind of priority is this in you? Are you, if like, say we take a workaholic who has fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, and they want a promotion more than they want to experience better health, I'm not going to work with them. I can't help them.
Right.
Not until they say, I gotta dial this in, or I'm killing myself slowly. And I don't want to look at what is this going to look like in 10 years? What is it going to look like in 20 years? Yeah. We also help people understand the medical costs associated with not taking care of themselves and how those, basically compound with time.
Those are huge. Do you have a number to share?
Well, sure. I mean, the number one people lose their house in the United States over the age of 70 is due to medical costs.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. I did not know that. That's a big one.
Yeah, I don't want to lose like my property over my life.
When I'm 70, right?
Like, you just pay off your last final mortgage payment, and then you lose your house because you are obese, or because you never learned how to do breath body practices that protect your bones, and now you fall down and break your hip, and then there's complications and an infection and this and that, and all of a sudden you're mortgaging your house.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a horrific, nightmarish forecast. So how does someone listen to their signals? I mean, well, we all have this is the nice thing is like, Ayurveda is incredibly complex, and I like to simplify it and then make it more complex for people that are ready for the next level of complexity. But in general, like, at first we're all the same. We're all the same species. So until we start acting like a human being, right? And that's not a human doing, that's different. But like, a human being has a quality of self-reflective awareness, which means that we actually are designed to sit at the end of each day, just like if you look back 100 years, people would sit on their porches at night and talk to their neighbors. And that, like, certain activities enable self-reflection more than others. Watching TV does not encourage self-reflection. No.
Right? And so neither does like the go, like check your email, check your Facebook, check your blah, blah, blah. Like, just totally mental chatter is exhausting for the human nervous system. So having time to be a human being each day, it might even only just be 20 minutes of just like sit and be together, just sit and meditate, go for a walk that's quiet, where you're just checking out.
Without social media, I'm assuming.
Yeah, without a podcast streaming in through your ears or anything. And I'm a massive podcaster, but I'm telling you, like, turn me off if you want to heal,
Right.
right? Like, create space for rejuvenation. And then the other basic habits, like if you go to bed early and you wake up early, you're tuned in to the most energetic time in the universe where the bodies and the mind can be like the most awake. That is the time when any spiritual person from any tradition, I don't care if it's like Zen monks or Catholic priests or Zen Buddhists or yogis, that's the time that's the best meditation practice of their day, or chanting practice or worship practice. Or
And what time is that, Cate? Give
4
me
to
a
6, usually like 3 to 6 a.m., 4 to 6 a.m.
Oh,
If you
got
look
it.
at like the Dalai Lama schedule, he's in bed by 8, he's up at 3, does his stuff or something like that, right?
Okay.
It doesn't have to be that extreme. For most people, say you're suffering from, the typical person has
Depression.
overwhelm and a slight level of depression, and they feel like they're not in control of their lives right
Yes.
now, and they can't do what they want to do with their time. And then you ignore that for long enough, you end up with an autoimmune disease or something like that, right?
Is that true?
In my experience, it is. In my experience of helping people heal, as soon as we dial those things in, the autoimmune diseases start to disappear.
Okay.
And and they start to live an empowered life. So it's all
linked.
Yeah. That's the beauty of Ayurveda, is we actually have really complex ways of just describing how it's all linked that don't really make sense in a allopathic model that's just measuring gross data from the body via machines. But they're starting to line up more as we understand brain waves, and we're starting to understand the power of meditation through measuring a lot of different types of, inflammation, cortisol, brainwave states, et cetera. And we're starting to be able to see like something's happening where it's good. It's just really good,
Well, the brain's growing. Imagine that.
Yeah, right. The brain's growing. The gut is digesting and absorbing better. Elimination's happening more. The person experiences a sense of peace and calm. They shift from a stress response to a relaxation response, right? So it's like a whole shift in the nervous system that's easy to measure. So all those things are happening, and we're just discovering why. So the more people pay attention to, like, okay, you have a shot every day, go to bed early so you can wake up and experience the dawn, your whole physiology is going to work better, your brain's going to work better, you're going to make better choices for yourself all day, etc. Stay up late, eat too much food, watch TV, drink some alcohol, wake up the next day groggy, feeling heavy, feeling depressed, and you're well on your way to cultivating disease. Keep doing that and you compound the disease effect. Do the opposite and you compound the healing effect. It's just not that hard.
It's so simple, right? It's so simple, and yet I find it is so hard for people to implement on a day-to-day basis.
No, they need, that's why the only way I work with people is in coaching programs. There's no way I can help someone who's not working in a group with a coach, because you need peers that are saying like, hey, I'm doing it. Why aren't you?
Exactly.
Right. And everyone thinks that, oh, it's so hard for me. And it's just not. It's just really an old repetitive pattern. I teach people to be, do small things every day and be miracle minded at the results that happen. And what we see is like miracles happen all the time, just through really small repetitive actions moving in the right direction. People set themselves up for failure in a lot of different ways, and we address those ways head on. Some people, it's like, okay, I'm going to bite off more than I can chew. I'm going to create this perfect picture for how I should do this. And if I can't do it perfectly, I'm not going to do it all. Yes. And they set themselves up consistently for failure, which is actually part of the disease pattern. Right. And so we break those kind of patterns. There's a lot of complexity in the behavioral science that we deal with head on. So we do a lot with like modern behavioral science mixed with ancient Ayurveda.
Oh, interesting. So you mentioned small repetitive actions. Obviously, one small repetitive action is sleep early, wake up early, do some meditation.
Yeah.
Can you give more examples of what are some other small repetitive actions that actually work?
Sure. Like a lot of people eat sporadically now and they snack throughout the day. It's a great way to create an ongoing stress response and unstable blood sugar levels.
That's right.
It's also a great way to create a lot of neuroses, basically, because the mind isn't getting a chance to go into rest and digest mode. So it's exhausting over time.
And I'll tell you from my personal experience, it will lead to leaky gut, SIBO, which were some of the things that I've been dealing with, because I would graze the entire day. But again, one of the challenges we face is that there's a lot of media that says, hey, eat small meals, eat all day.
But there's not a lot of medical science to back that up.
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, this is the thing too, is you want to talk to people who look really healthy. There's this great woman, Victoria Botenko, who started she's the mom of the raw food family. That was like a big deal back in the late 90s and early I don't know, whatever it's called, the early 2000s. And they were like one of the first families that went raw foods. Her son was 9 years old, diagnosed with diabetes type 1. Her daughter was diagnosed with asthma and would need an inhaler. So, and I think her husband was like overweight and depressed and maybe diabetic type 2 or something like that. It's like just like they all got sick really fast when they went from Russia to the US. Within 2 years, they were all basically supposed to be on medication for life. And she just decided she would talk to the healthiest people that she saw. So she would go to places where healthy people were and ask them what they were doing. She went to a natural food store somewhere in the Denver area in the mid 90s and ran into some woman who looked really healthy. And she was like, "You look really healthy. What do you eat?" And the woman said, "I eat a raw food diet." And so she started to do that. And I mean, I do talk a lot about living foods and helping people, understand about enzymes and understand about, just about how what you put in should be somewhat close to alive. But I'm also an advocate of cooked foods in certain situations, etc. So anyways, she, just that idea of like, ask the healthiest people, ask people that look progressively healthier, what they're doing. In my Body Thrive program, which teaches the 10 habits of Ayurveda with coaches, every person in there has a breakthrough. And I have people that have been teaching yoga for 30 years. Yoga teachers are some of the healthiest people in the world, really, because they're not just healthy in their body, they're healthy in their mind, they're healthy in their relationships, they're living on multiple levels simultaneously and looking to progress those simultaneously.
Right.
And I have those people that have been teaching for 30, great teachers from Manhattan, from LA, from Paris, you know what I mean? And they all have breakthroughs. Just simply cutting out snacking, being more mindful at bedtime, being more mindful at waking time. The amount of energy then they experience is, I mean, it's out of this world. And the amount of mental clarity that all of a sudden what happens is someone gets out of really going against the cycles of nature and depleting themselves into a cycle of actually having more. And once you have more to give. And it starts to wake you up to what in yoga we call dharma, or a life of living from a greater purpose that's beyond you, and really having what we now call like impact in the Western world, like really having like by the time you hit your deathbed, you have had a massive net positive experience. Your life has had a net positive experience that goes so far beyond you.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah. And so that's what we're all capable of. But most of us keep ourselves so sick that we just keep thinking about ourselves the whole time.
Yes, because that's all you can think about when you're sick, right?
That's all you can think about when you're sick. And for a lot of people, if you look at the snacking throughout the day and the emotional eating pattern, I had a woman on a Body Thrive call last week. She's like, I don't know how it's happening, but I've had emotional eating patterns for, I can't remember how many years, but she's in her probably 60s. She just lost a daughter. It was something horrific, and I can't remember if it was murder or suicide, but it was a really ugly thing, and there's lawyers involved, and it's just really tough situation. And she's like, I don't know how this is happening. I'm just following this program, which is just the habits I've told you all. There's nothing magic here. And she's like, I don't know why, but my I've never not experienced emotional eating. And this week for the second week in a row, I don't have any emotional eating patterns.
Wow.
I don't know where this is going. I'm able to, my mind says I want something and I go and get it and I look at it and I don't even want it. So I don't eat it. So the mind hasn't caught up yet, but the body is making better choices for the body. And that's a basic thing I teach people to do, is like, let your body heal your body. Your body knows what to do. As soon as you're in a group that's aligned and you're out of unconscious issues and you're out of a pathological eating pattern, the body will make very good decisions for the body. The body will tell you, I'm tired, I want to go to sleep. And you just go to sleep instead of being like, oh, I need a shot of caffeine to wake me up. Or not at night, my people, ice cream. Right. Little coffee ice cream or chocolate ice cream or something with the sugar and caffeine. And then it's like,
don't forget those toppings, those sugar-loaded toppings.
Right.
Exactly. No, I've lived it. I've been there, done that, paid the price very early in life, and I hear you.
And then, can I just go back to, because you were asking about family and patterns before, and all I want to say is that everything is so much more plastic than you assume it is. And I'm talking to the listeners, not to you. But you guys, I mean, if you really have to investigate, and this is something I help people do, but it's very easy to do. You have to investigate your beliefs. What are your
Yes.
current beliefs? What are the higher truths? And you just make a list. On one side, what are your current beliefs? And then question your beliefs. Is that true? Is it true that it's even hard to change your habits? In my experience, it's
Right.
not. It's actually really easy. But if you have a belief that it's hard, you're going to make it hard. You may have a
Right.
belief that the only time your family can eat dinner is 8 p.m. because of everybody's schedules. I've had moms who are 40 pounds overweight with teenage kids just eat dinner themselves at 6 p.m. and then serve their families at 8 p.m. and lose 30 pounds within 3 months.
Yep.
Yeah, one
Absolutely.
habit, right? And all they did is they changed their belief around it.
Exactly.
And they said, oh, I don't actually have to eat with my family. I just have to be with my family. And what she found, this one woman in particular found, is that it was actually a relief because, when a mom sits down, if the mom's in charge of getting the food on the table, there's often like, oh, I need a spoon. Oh, I need ketchup. Oh, I need.
Yeah.
Is
That's
that she
right.
can actually feed herself in quiet and in
And
peace.
peace. Yes.
And then during dinner, she's like, okay, what do you guys need? And she'd just go
Exactly.
get it all. She'd sit down and she'd relax and enjoy the conversation.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, again, been there, experienced that. I think the hardest part is putting yourself first. Realizing that I have to heal myself, that I can't put myself below the list, at the bottom of the list. And that was the hardest part, I think. And I see a lot of my friends who are suffering from chronic illness.
Yeah.
Every day they have to make decisions, right? It's a choice. This or this, this or that. And when it comes to, well, this choice will help me, but this other choice will help someone else, we end up making poor choices for ourselves. And I think, how much of that have you noticed, and how much do you help with that, which is just teaching people to prioritize themselves and saying, no, you're more important. So if you need to sleep early and your spouse doesn't, then you need to figure out how to make that work for you.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of just personal empowerment in that. So there's two ways. Like the limiting belief, higher truth is one way. Like, do you really believe that putting everyone else first is a good long-term solution?
Right.
I mean, that's just an easy one to shoot a million holes in. And then there's a lot of variations on that. And then another way to look at it is actually identity evolution. So we talk a lot about how you actually need, if you're going to change who you are, you're creating a new identity for yourself, and to start to get really clear, get a very clear vision on who you're becoming. It's very hard to become something without a clear vision. Like I do a lot of, I help wellness experts grow their businesses. That's about 50% of what I do now. Besides I help people get healthy, and then I help wellness experts grow their businesses. And I have a lot of different coaching, training programs and coaches that help me with different things and whatnot. So it's all growing simultaneously. But just on that side, like say you're a business owner and you want to go take your business from 500,000 to $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't be the same person at $1 million. No. You can't. You just have totally different skills. You have different relationships. You have a different job. Basically, a different job description,
right.
different
Completely
to do.
Different job. That's
so
right.
Unless you know what that actually looks like, it's going to be really, really hard to hit it. But if you start to know what that looks like, you can actually then map out the steps between where you are and where you're going. Same thing's true with health, right? Really? So say you're 50 pounds overweight, and you have this identity of I'm someone who I can eat a whole pizza,
right?
Or I can finish a pint of Ben and Jerry's by myself, right? And I like to sleep
in the morning every night. I sleep at 2 in the morning. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really, really smart, and I'm really happy because of this, that, and the other thing, right? You might be very happy, but you might also deep down be like, gosh, I really wonder who I would be without these 50 pounds. Exactly. So you start to get curious about that. And then maybe you talk to your doctor, and your doctor's like, yeah, well, you're going to have to go on this med and that med because your blood pressure and your cholesterol are a mess and blah, 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 right? And maybe you actually have in your identity, I'm not someone who takes drugs.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden you're like, okay, who am I? Right. So now you got to decide, well, I can't be someone who's 50 pounds overweight and eats Ben and Jerry's all the time and be a person that doesn't take drugs. Like, this is obviously not working. So now I'm being invited to evolve my identity for real. Someone else is actually inviting me to do that. Yes. And it's usually effective when someone else gives. It's fun working with my cat right now because I'm like, I have a 100% compliant client.
Captive. He's a captive audience.
I'm captain. I can dose her with whatever I want, and she doesn't have to eat it, so that's fine. That's actually, I'm using her natural taste. But in any case, most of us aren't like that, and we can make a lot of choices, and we have a lot more wiggle room. So then we have to take it upon ourselves to look at, like, well, who do I want to become next? And that I used to use that phrase a lot. Who do I want to become? And then what I found recently in the last year of offering trainings is that when I put that word next, takes a lot of pressure off.
Yes.
You don't have to make a decision for who you're going to be for the next 10 years. I have no idea who I'm going to be in 2 years. I really don't. I mean, I have some ideas. I mean, I'm planning certain things for my 2020 visions and all that, but like deep down, like I have no idea who that person is. I'm excited about what the options are and the potentialities, right? But you just say next, and I say like in the next 3 months, this is the kind of person that I want to become. And then what happens is then I can actually look for other people that are already there.
Right.
And then I can ask the question, what do they do? And if I know them, I can just ask them themselves. And I actually do that all the time. I hire coaches that were ahead of me, and I say, okay, how do I become like you? Like, what am I not doing that you're doing?
Yes.
Right? So say you're that 50-pound overweight person. Yeah, and you go to the dog park. Maybe you have a dog, and every day you go to the dog park, and you notice that like some of the other people at the dog park are not 50 pounds overweight. And so maybe you start asking them, so like, what do you eat?
Yes.
Right? Like, where do you go shopping?
Yes.
You know, and you look at like, the healthiest person, you're like, I want to be like that person, or whatever the person is that you're like, I want to be like them.
Yes.
You ask them what they're doing.
Exactly.
You know, and then you start to build some like identity around that. Okay, I'm going to be a person who goes to Whole Foods, and I'm going to be a person who goes for a 20-minute walk before I go to the dog park.
Right.
And I'm going to be the kind of person who eats 3 meals a day instead of snacks. And I'm going to be the person who actually doesn't get triggered by all the food that's brought to the office, all the crap that's brought to the office all the time by all the people who are happy being addicted to sugar. Like, I'm just not going to be a person that's triggered by that. When I see that, I'm going to take that as an invitation to go drink a glass of water and do something pleasurable for me. And everyone has a different thing for pleasure. So whatever that is for you, that's not food, right? And you start to develop an identity around who you're becoming. And that starts to get stronger and stronger the more you develop tiny habits around that. And soon you find like, oh my gosh, I am so not who I used to be.
Yes. And being proud of who you are now, right? It's not easy. Making that transition is really not easy because it's like the world is conspiring against you.
I don't know. I'm going to fight you on that. I think that's an outdated belief. I really do.
The ads on TV, because I've been trying to.
But then don't watch TV, right?
Don't watch TV,
so it's like. Right. So then it's like it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, this is something that I teach all the time. It's like become miracle minded instead of saying like, oh my gosh, it's so hard, everyone else is doing that. It's like, actually, it's not. There's never been an easier time to make change. You've never had more access to amazing information. Develop a YouTube channel for yourself that totally reinforces the habits that you want. Surround yourself by people that have those habits. Start to ignore conversations that are going in the direction that you don't want to go in. And it's never been easier. Because when you have that mindset of it's never been easier, you are going to experience health so much more quickly than if you have a mindset that this is really hard. And it's just a mindset. And the same thing's true.
A grocery store. Yesterday, I was in a grocery store, and I kid you not, I need to get out of there so fast because what they do is they've got the yummiest of things in the right places. There's chocolates and brownies, and yes, I was in Whole Foods, and yes, these were good brownies and good chocolates. And
were you hungry? Did you go in hungry?
No, but I'm a sugar addict. So for me, sugar
Did you have enough fat that day?
You know, I'm eating 3 meals. I'm on this new plan where I eat three solid meals with almost 40% fat.
Okay, great.
So yeah, but it's that mind. If that mind gets triggered, like, oh my God, that brownie looks so good. And so my strategy now is I go in with blinkers on. I'm listening to a podcast, and I pick my things and I walk out. But it is hard because you're living in a world where they are peddling sugar and coffee and so it's strength of the mind. And what I realized is that I almost meditate every morning to say, God, give me the strength to resist, give me willpower, give me the ability to walk away.
So I would change that too. So give me the strength to resist, because resist is already setting yourself up that this is hard.
Right.
So I would change that to something like, let me hear the deeper desires of my body. Because then you walk into Whole Foods and you're like, that brownie, like your body will be repulsed. If you're healthy enough, right? And I'm not talking right now to people that are, just basically have a chemical palate, because a
Right.
lot of people have a chemical palate where
Right.
you've had so many food additives, your body's just totally, the
No.
intelligence of your body's temporarily destroyed. You can totally rebuild it.
Yes.
Go to some rejuvenation center, go through a good cleansing program, and in 30 days you can totally cleanse your palate. And then now you have an intelligent palate again. But if you say, let me just choose that which is healing to my body, and that becomes your mantra, and you go into Whole Foods, like, let me just choose, and you're just repeating that mantra, let me just choose what's healing to my body, you'll have a blast, because you won't have to resist anything. It just won't resonate. I mean, I go to the store, it doesn't actually matter what store, it doesn't even matter if I'm in like the airport, if I'm in like a 7-Eleven, my body will find the healthiest things in that store if I need to actually find food there.
Interesting.
Right?
I like that. I like that mantra. Find something that'll heal my body. Find something that'll heal, that'll heal my body. I like that. So I'm going to try that next time.
Yeah, great. And just try it now. I mean, just start doing that so that by the time you're in the store, it's actually already an automated mind pattern.
Meditation. That's something I can meditate on.
Yeah, and as you do, just feel how alive. Like, there's prana in our body. So prana is energy. There's an energy that has consciousness. So it's a little different than oxygen,
right?
Because it carries constant consciousness. It's something that the principle of oxygen doesn't really tap into, is that there's an intelligence to it. But prana captures that there's an intelligence. It's conscious. It's self-reflective, and it's tied to oxygen. Right. Like all those things all in one. And it has everything to do with the amount of oxygen in our blood, and how well our blood is circulating, and how detoxed our blood is. It's like the more consciousness, the more prana we're going to experience. So there's all that tied into that concept. Right. So the prana is intelligent. The prana is, I mean, breathe in, it's there, it's in your blood, and it's intelligent, and it's helping your body make intelligent choices for your body and for your mind and your spirit. Right. And so you plug into that, and in your morning meditation, you plug into that. You're actually like turning on your receptors so that your cravings will naturally be healthier. Like, I can tell you, even though I've had these amazing habits for a long time, and I've been teaching yoga for a long time, I mean, I don't know, 16 years, and practicing Ayurveda for 15 years, and I can tell you exactly how I can generate pathological cravings like that. I drink at night, stay up too late, don't meditate, don't exercise the next morning, drink a bunch of coffee, have some pancakes with syrup. Like, I'm going to be a mess by 10 a.m.
Yeah, you're right. So it's easy to fall off the wagon as well.
It's easy to not tune into prana, and then it's just as easy to tune into prana. It's actually easier, because once you have, basically life is life positive is another core belief that most healing systems have, is that life isn't neutral. It's intelligent. It's life positive. It goes to more connection. It goes to more growth. It goes to more expansion, more connection, right? The power of good is stronger than the power of evil, inherently, right? And so when we tune into that, and like, if that's true out there, it's true in here. Anything that's true out there is true in here, because the universe made me.
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So then it's got to be easier to heal, right? It's got to be easier to make better decisions.
You're right.
And the more better decisions you make, the easier it is to make better and better decisions. So you start to have a positive compound effect instead of a negative compound effect. And that's when life becomes magical.
And I think that's why it's all in the head. I feel like it all starts up here, right? I think if we can fix this part, then the rest of the decisions get easier and easier. And then, to your point, life just kind of flows correctly, because you've set yourself up to make the right decisions. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we are running out of time. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your two programs, and how many people do you have in each program? How many students do you work with? And talk to our audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, where we start most people out is Body Thrive, which is a 10-week course that's based on everything I just talked about, like just dialing the habits, being in a support group, moving through a curriculum. I also have a book on Amazon called Body Thrive. You can get it in any country that has Amazon books, and it's exciting. We're actually translating it into Spanish and German this year. Yeah, my students are like, we need this in other languages. I was like, all right, you guys do it. We'll put it out there. So fun. And so, yeah, if you go to bodythrive.com and you go under groups, you can find out, you can apply to be in the next course. Depending on, the courses have different sizes depending on if I'm coaching or one of my head coaches is coaching, but Yeah, what we do is we have assistants, course assistants. So we usually have with the assistants about a 1-to-10 ratio.
Okay.
And so I may have like 50 to 100 people in a group, but with their coaches, they have a 1-to-10 ratio. And then, and it doesn't seem to matter because I basically build programs that are based on results. So I will never outbuild, I'll never have too many people that won't get the results because I'm results focused, right? Okay. So everything's based on better energy, a better diet, deeper rest. Those are our metrics. I want everyone in my programs to experience those because those are the biggest problems.
Right.
Agreed. And then once people get out of that, they often want to learn more about Ayurveda. They often want to become their family's healer. And so we have a 9-month program on that. And actually anyone can we have a free training that's part of a prep for that to help people see if they're really interested. And that's at yogahealer.com/Ayurveda-training. I think it's actually on the Yoga Healer home site too. If you go to yogahealer.com and you scroll down, you'll see free Ayurveda training. And that's a good way to see if you really do want to, it's a great intro training on its own, standalone. But then if you're truly wanting to go deeper into Ayurveda and becoming your family's healer, and family, you might not have kids, but you may have parents, you may have a partner, you may have cats and dogs, you may have friends, you may be a yoga teacher and you want to help your students. It's very much based on intergenerational healing and health, which, like you said, mom's sick, kids aren't going to grow up knowing what to do, right? Mom's family's out of whack, mom gets sick, guess what? The kids they have the habits of illness.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we do in that 9-month course is get everything on a much more complex level. People to understand, like you were talking about gut health. We go through basically a whole Ayurvedic curriculum to get people aligned with their physical body, their subtle body, their mental body, their intuitive body, and tapped into bliss and making better decisions. And it totally rearranges someone's life.
And how do these courses work? So is it virtual, and how many hours a day or a week?
Yeah, it's all, we're all global and virtual, but we have meetups. So this next year we're meeting up in Mexico, and then we're meeting up in one of my head coaches, actually her husband owns a hotel in Rapid City. So we're all going to her hotel for one of our other meetups in, I think, October 2017. Yeah, and there's if you go to yogahealer.com/blog, you can see there's tons of images from the June blog posts, the June 2016 blog posts on what it's actually like to be at a meetup. Or a retreat, and you can see it's like people are just like stoked because they've all grown so much, and they're with people that totally get them and totally get each other, and are not
right, as you said, it's your tribe.
It's my tribe. So everyone's gotten over all their limiting beliefs, and so when they come together, it's very explosive. What happens? Tremendous growth, incredible. Yes, exactly. And right now we're really developing collective leadership, which is how we co-create as a tribe, and it's very evolutionary in nature, and deeply healing to the parts of ourselves that may have gotten, lost in the shuffle of other parts growing. Mm-hmm. So we do that, and I think that's really important. So even though it is online and virtual and all that, so people learn by webinars, we meet up usually in every course. We meet up about weekly by teleconference. We have incredibly active forums. Which are these, hubs of questions and conversations and places to get support. And then the learning, I'm very much into synchronistic and asynchronistic learning. So when we're together, it's all conversational coaching type style. But any of the actual learning takes place over webinar, where it's just download. I'm just downloading my brain into your brain so that we're on the same page.
Got it.
Right. And all that's via webinar. So I never teach on a call, because I'd rather interact. I'd rather troubleshoot with you. I'd rather dig into the dirt and see what limiting beliefs are holding you back, what's going on with your family habits, how long certain symptoms are going on, so I can understand more about your constitution. I can understand more about your health history. I was trying to think, a woman on a call the other day she was calling in, she just got pregnant. She had a just tremendous amount of fear. And so we just dug deep of what's going on there. She's like, well, I actually joined this course because I miscarried.
Oh,
right. Okay. And so then I had, I think I had about 10 minutes coaching with her to totally shift her body energetically and help her build a habit for when fear arises, for exactly what to do. And it was so profound for her, she, for her just to have that. And that's what we try to do. The calls are a week apart so that when stuff comes up, you can resolve it quickly, so it doesn't turn into something else. Because when things aren't resolved, and you know this from your own health history,
Yeah.
one thing turns into another thing, turns into another thing, and every time it turns into something else, it's harder to uproot.
It is, and it's a snowball effect. It definitely exponentially gets worse and worse. So it is great to be able to stop things as soon as they've started than to wait for a whole month. So your 10-week program and your 9 months program, they all have a weekly get-together.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
And then we have 2 annual get-togethers in person, and people fly in from all over, and we create an experience. They're experiences. So we create this
Fun.
really
Sounds
yeah,
like a lot of fun.
It's great. I love my tribe.
Oh, so who is the ideal person for this? Is it someone who's chronically ill? Is it someone? Talk a little bit about that.
Anyone who's seeking to thrive. I mean, we're really very general because we have a lot of different programs actually outside of those. I have an awake living course for people who already have their body dialed in. They're already like super healthy, but they want to up level their space, like the space that they're living in, how they're managing time, and how they're optimizing their dharma. So once people have their body dialed in and they feel great, they're now eligible for that course.
Oh, wow, okay.
It helps them deal with like time. I mean, most people's issues right now have a lot to do with like time and space and purpose.
It's like high school to college to grad school.
Exactly. And then we have the career path trainings for people that are already in the wellness field. We help them actually dial their wellness up a notch and then teach them how to grow their business. So it's twofold, that we won't let them grow their business until their health habits are dialed up a notch, because otherwise they'll burn out.
Okay. Well, when does your next 2 sessions start? When does the next 9-month course start, and when does the next?
Yeah, so our 10-week programs start all the time. So just go to Body Thrive, apply there, and you'll talk to someone on our team in admissions, and they'll make sure. We don't let anyone enroll into anything if it's not a perfect fit, and that's why we have we get great results, because, like I said before, if people are too much in their, I don't know, the time, I don't know, the money, this isn't really that important, then I can't help them. So we don't want them. We want very dynamic groups. One of the things that we find is that dynamic groups accelerate much faster. So if we have some people that are just not really ready to be in a group or this or that, then we just send them to informational resources. That might be a good warm-up step for them to get ready to be in a dynamic group. Then the Living Ayurveda course starts once a year. It starts at the end of September. Although people actually can enroll at different points in the year, and they go into a prep school that gets them ready for the course. But we will enroll people right up until the course begins if they're a good fit. The Living Ayurveda course, interestingly enough, has people that just really want to become their own healer or their family's healer, up to people that are certified Ayurvedic practitioners and nutritionists and Chinese medicine people and Western doctors, nurses. I mean, we get lots of incredibly qualified people who want to understand how I teach Ayurveda, because it's so effective. So we just get a huge mix. We get a lot of yoga teachers in that one as well, and serious yoga students who have heard enough about Ayurveda to know that like it's huge in terms of dynamic aging. Like, what does it look like to age in a growth pattern as opposed into a pattern of decline? So in that, we get people in Living Ayurveda course, we get people in their 70s that are like, I feel better than I felt in 20 years.
Wow. That's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, because they influence their kids, they influence their grandkids, they influence their friends, they influence their colleagues. Like, it's incredible to see the impact of someone in their 70s who makes changes that they've been living with patterns for 50 years, not 20 years, not 30 years, but like 50, 60 years.
That's right.
See them reverse their patterns. It's incredible.
So what's the oldest person you've had ever in your coaching classes?
Oh, I think late 70s.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's someone in their 80s right now. But yeah, I take this as an invitation to push that envelope. I mean, I'm so curious, especially as more and more people are living into their 90s and 100s. It's like... That's
right. That's exactly right.
And we find that people that are living longer, healthier, they all have a life learning mindset. So they should be in my courses. Where are you guys?
Come find me. That's right. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to live long, you want to live healthy. You don't want to be living long and being miserable.
Right?
You don't need a wheelchair for 20 years of your life, or with chronic pain.
Yeah.
So
or digestive issues, or sleep issues, or
Oh, sleep's a big one for everyone in their 70s. My parents, sleep's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That frankly, the older you are, the more you should be considering Ayurveda and perhaps your coach. Yeah. So wonderful. Well, this has just been such a pleasure chatting with you, Kate. We're going to put a lot of information about your site, etc., on our site and on this video as well. Any last parting feedback or thoughts to ponder for those who are suffering from chronic illness? Any points of hope for them?
Yeah, actually, I have a good resource. If you just and you can just Google Yoga Healer Trauma Recovery.
Okay.
I have a one-page cheat sheet, and just print that out and put it on your fridge and just follow that. I mean, if you're really in a pain, I call it a pain cave. Like if you're in a pain cave,
Yeah.
then just start there. It's really simple. It's really, it's just following some simple rhythms that'll get you back in track. I mean, it's basically like this, like health has a rhythm. And when you're unhealthy, you're living arrhythmically.
Right.
And so all that my trauma recovery guide is just brings you back in, it just brings you back into rhythm. And it's interesting. I published that right after that. I can't remember what it was, like Hurricane Sandy or something that hit the East Coast, and all my peeps out there were like, we don't have, like, they're all stressed out basically. And so I created this little trauma recovery cheat sheet, and since then I've just heard all of, from so many people all over the world that like, oh my gosh, I use this for recovering from surgery, or I use this when I was diagnosed with MS, or and it just helps people find the most basic rhythms in their day and create the most ease for their physiology to start to heal. So it's just a very basic habits healing guide.
Would you be okay if we shared it on our site with our readers and linked it back to your site?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can just download the PDF and upload it on yours. That's fine.
And then we'll just link it back to yours. That would be fantastic. Sounds like something I'd love to take a look at. So
yeah, super simple. Just puts you in healing mode.
Well, thank you for sharing. You're amazing. You're awesome. And really appreciate you sharing so much of yourself. And thank you for healing the world. You're on such a wonderful mission, such a wonderful cause. So I can just imagine there's some amazing karma that you're building up for sure. Thank you so much, Kate.
Oh, my pleasure. It's really been a blast.
All right. Take care. We'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.